Hello and welcome again to another tutorial. This one will focus on fractions, percentages, decimals, ratios, exchange rates, basically computations, and it's courtesy the Math Ministry, www.maths123.org. That's our website. As usual, we go into the Word of God, which says in Proverbs 29:25, the fear of man brings a snare, but whosoever trusts in the Lord shall be saved. So basically, don't allow fear to dictate how you think, how you speak, and act. You will notice that once you become afraid, it will prevent you from achieving your goals and making progress. And finally, instead of being fearful, let faith be a driving force, that is faith in God, and everything will be okay. So, worksheet on computations. Let's go straight into our worksheet. The very first question asks us to perform some calculations. Yes, you can use your calculator. So let's square 2.3 and see what we get. 2.3 square. So we're multiplying that by itself. 2.3 square. That's 5.29. And of course, we're going to subtract the square root of 3.4969 from that. So let's write down the first one. So that's 5.29. So this is equal to 5.29. And let's see what we're subtracting. Right, so we're going to work out the square root of 3.4969. Let's see how that goes. Cancel this. Square root of 3.4969. Let's see how that works. Let's see if we can take the square root of that. All right, so that's 1.87. Okay, so this sums becomes 5.29 minus 1.87. Right, so 5.29, 3.42. So that's our first answer there, 3.42. Okay, well done. Using a calculator, otherwise calculate the value of. Right, so again, remember what we spoke about in one of the earlier videos. You may be familiar with the acronym PEMDAS or BODMAS. That's the order in which you perform your operations. So choose one and let's proceed. So the two operations we have here would be subtraction and multiplication. So according to either of these two here, we will perform the multiplication first and then we'll do our subtraction. So let's multiply these two results. 1.03 by 6.22. One 0.03 by, okay, what's our answer? 6.4066. Right, so this is 6.4066. And of course, we need to subtract that from 13.84. Right, let's see what our final answer will be. So we are taking this away from 13.84. 7.4334. 7.4334. Right, so that's the exact value. So as we go to our next question, number 2. So you have two different sizes of an item, sweet and sour tomato paste, and they give us the corresponding prices. Okay, which bottle size is better in terms of the price? Okay, so basically you can find the cost per milliliter, basically. So if 265 mLs cost $8.33, let's see what is the cost per ml. So we simply divide this by our 265, and that will give us the price per ml. And we do the same thing here. So of course, the one with the lower price per ml, and that's the reason you'll be given for the answer, the one with the lower price per ml will be the better buy. Right, so calculator comes in handy again. Right, so let's work out the first answer. And let's see if we could call up another calculator there. We'll have two answers and we just compare them and say which one is the better buy, right? Okay. So let's clear this first one. Right, so if we perform the first division, 833 divided by 265. Right, we basically getting about 0.03, which is really 3 cents per ml. So in the first one, you're paying 3 cents per ml. Let's compare the price with the second one now. So this one is $19.20 divided by 755. So the question is bigger always better? Let's see if that's true. Right, so when I compare this one, the price per ml here is just under 3 cents, 0.025. So this is much cheaper than this one here, 0.03. So the bigger item in this case will be the better buy because the price per ml is less. Okay, so that'll take us to question number 3 now. When we look at 3, it is taking us into ratios and proportions. So you have Zozo blocks are made with buckets of gravel, sand, and cement. So that's our ratio here. Gravel, sand, and cement, 5:3:2. If 15 buckets of sand are used in a mix there, how much bucket of cements are needed? Right, so let's see if we could make some sense of that. 5:3:2. Right, gravel, sand, and cement. That's the combination to make the block. Now, let's look at the quantities now. So they ask us if 15 buckets of sand. So there you go. You're using 15 buckets of sand. So the question is, how many buckets of cement here, sorry, are needed? So you put another question mark here. All right, so let's look at the ratio first. Now we want to compare. If you are mixing using this ratio in your mixtures, then notice that in total you have 10 parts, right? So the gravel will be 5 out of 10, which is really half the mixture. The sand will be 3 out of 10, and the cement will be 2 parts out of 10. Okay, so 15 sand, right? 15 buckets of sand represents 3/10, right? 3 parts out of 10. So let's write that. So 15 buckets of sand represent, right, 3 parts. So we want to determine how much one part really represents, right? So it represents 3 parts, right? So how many buckets, right, of sand will represent 1 part? So think about it. If you're using three parts equivalent to 15 buckets, then 1 part will be equivalent to 15 divided by 3, which is 5 buckets of sand, represent 1 part. Now, the measurement we use in here are buckets, right? So if we're saying that sand takes 3 parts, here it is, and cement takes 2 parts, and if 5 buckets represent 1 part, then we expect the 2 parts will be 5 by 2, which will equal 10 buckets of cement in that mixture. Right? Represents 2 parts. Right, so let's quickly go over that. When you're given a ratio and proportion question similar to this one, the first thing you do is you must determine the total mixture. So it is 10 parts in all, right? Focus on that. So 5, in this case, 3 buckets. Let me see, right? Three parts represent 15 buckets. So you need to always work out what we call the unity method. Figure out what 1 part represents. So 1 part will be 15 divided by the 3, which will be 5 buckets. And if the cement needs 2 parts, then it will mean 2 multiplied by 5, which will be 10 buckets of what? Cement. Okay, so we have this one here. The answer will be 10, right? 10 buckets of cement. If a mixture with 30 buckets of gravel can produce 150 blocks, how many blocks can be produced using a mixture of 45 buckets of sand? Right, so this one is interesting. So again, they're giving us 2 bits of information to work with here. And we're going to use the same parts method. So let's go back to this. If a mixture of 30 buckets of gravel can produce 150 blocks, how many blocks can be produced using a mixture of 45 buckets of sand? So let's see how many buckets of gravel 45 buckets of sand would correspond to in that particular mixture. So if you're using, let's write down the ratio again, gravel to sand to cement. So if you are using 45, right, so let the parts here will be 5 to 3 to 2. Right, so if you're using 45 buckets of sand, 45 buckets here, right? So this 3 part is equivalent to 45 buckets. So let's see what 1 part represents. How many buckets? If 3 parts is equivalent to 45 buckets, then 1 part will be equivalent to 45 divided by 3, which will be 15 buckets. Now, watch it again. Look back at the question. They say they want us to find out how many blocks can be produced using a mixture of 45 buckets of sand. So we go back to the original combination of the mixtures, gravel to sand to cement. In this scenario, the 3 parts in this mixture will represent 45 buckets in terms of the measurement for sand. So 1 part would be 15 buckets. So if you need 5 parts of gravel, it means that you'll have to multiply 5 by 15. You will need 75 buckets in this mixer here, right? I'll just put, right, let me see if I could get the full words here, right? And then in this one here, if you need 2 parts of cement, you'll need 2 by 30, 15, which is 30 buckets. Now remember, this makes sense because when you reduce this, if you divide by 15 throughout, 15 into 75 divided by 15 is 5, 45 divided by 15 is 3, 30 divided by 15 is what, 2. So it is consistent with the same ratio, right? Now, why are we saying all of this? Because we need to answer the question. If you're using a mixture having 45 buckets of sand, you will need the equivalent of 75 buckets of gravel. We just calculated that right there for you. You will need the equivalent of 75 buckets of gravel. Now, the question is, based on the information given here, a mixture of 30 buckets of gravel can produce 150 blocks. So how many blocks can be produced using a mixture of 45 buckets of sand? Well, this 45 buckets of sand will mean that 75 buckets of gravel are being used. And that is the key to answering the question in terms of finding the number of blocks. And let's show you how, right? So what we need to appreciate here is that 30 buckets gives us 150 blocks. 30 buckets of gravel gives us 150 blocks. So 1 bucket of gravel in the mixture will give us 150 divided by 30, which is 5 blocks. And of course, now that we're using 75 buckets of gravel here, let's see how many blocks we can get. If 1 bucket will give us 5 blocks, then 75 buckets, this is how many blocks we'll yield from that mixture. It'll be 75 multiplied by 5. Right, so let's get that answer there. 75 multiplied by 5. 75 by 5. 375 blocks. So that'll be the answer. Now, I want you to appreciate that this method of always using the unity approach, finding what is the equivalent of 1 in solving these problems is extremely powerful, and it makes sense, so you can reason it down in terms of finding your answer. Okay, so that'll take care of the second, or is it the third question there? Question number 3, right? And we're ready to do some further calculations in question number 4. So let's clear that. Right, so question number 4, again, testing our understanding of order of arithmetic operations, how we perform them. And we're going to rely on the PEMDAS and the BODMAS. Right, so let's look at BODMAS here. So what are the operations we have? We have a subtraction. That's the last thing we're going to do. So we have 3 operations. So we're going to do this one last. We have a division. Then we have a multiplication. So let's perform the division first. Then we're going to do the multiplication second. And then the final answer we're going to do is the subtraction. We'll do that third. Okay, so let's divide 3.84 divided by 1.5. Let's get an answer for that. 3.84. Two point 2.56. So then this problem becomes 11.7 minus 2.45 multiplied by, let's check the answer again. I think it's 2.56, let's see. Right, 2.56. Right, so just to make a point, and I don't want us to sidestep this. Right, and I want us to be clear. This one, the division, then we're going to multiply as shown here. Division, then multiplication. We got the 2.56. Now, if you had done the multiplication, then divide, you would have gotten the same answer, right? So it doesn't matter. So let's perform the multiplication part of it now. 2.56 multiply by 2.45. Let's see what we get. $2.45 multiply by 2.56. Right, let's get the right 6.272. Right, 6.272. Now, just to be certain, remember I said if you had performed, let me write that in first. 6.272. 6.272. Right, so let's bring back up the two calculators again. Right, so this is the one giving us the 2.56. Right. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to perform the two operations here. We already got the 6.2. Okay, so this one we divided first and then we multiplied. Let's multiply these two results first. The 2.54 multiplied by the 3.84 and then divide, and let's see what we get. Just to be looking at the multiplication, then the division in the PEMDAS approach, right? So you have 2.45 multiplied by 3.84, and then you divide by the 1.5. Right, you still get 6.272 as we saw in both workings. All right, so now that we have the 6.72, we have to take that away from our 11.7. 5.428. So that'll give us an answer of 5.428. Right, so that's the exact figure in part one right here, the exact figure for part one. Calculate that exactly. Then we need to correct it to 1 decimal place, then 3 significant figures. Okay, so 1 decimal place, right? We simply examine the digit after the 4. It's less than 5, so the answer will be 5.4. 3 significant figures, let's count. 1, 2, 3. And then, of course, we examine this one. It's greater than, it's 5 or more, greater than 5. So therefore, you'll add 1 to this, so this answer becomes 5.43. And then this one wants us to write the answer in scientific notation. That's a part 4 here. Let's put it in part 4. Well, scientific notation, you write in your answer in the form like this. Right, so your exact answer is 5.428. The first number is already between 1 and 10, so it will be 10 to the power 0, right? So that'll be your answer in scientific notation. Okay, so remember, this is being brought to you courtesy the Math Ministry through our website, The Art of Maths, and you can visit us at www.maths123.org, right? So we're going pretty good so far. Let's go to question number 5. 2 more and then we are out of here. Right, so this is a common life experience where you go on vacation and you have to use different currencies, right? Depending on where you are going, which may be different from your currency based on where you live. Here, you are booking a vacation to Grenada and you're doing that through Navy Travel Agency. Right, so you want to find out the cost of the airfare in EC dollars. And this is the exchange rate, which is very important. So the cost of the airfare is US 356. So 1 US is equivalent to 2.75 EC. So therefore, the cost of the airfare, only the airfare, would be 2.75 multiplied by 356. So let's work out that. 2.75 by 356. Right? Because remember, you have to put out more EC dollars for each US dollar. So you expect your answer to be greater than 356. Okay. So 356 multiplied by 2.75. Right. 979 EC dollars. So this will be 979 EC dollars. Right? 979 EC dollars. March save 6,000 EC. How many nights can March spend, right, if she plans to use all her savings on this dream vacation package, right? Right, okay, how many nights can she afford? So we also have to take into account the hotel accommodation. All right, so we already know how much the airfare will cost her in terms of EC dollars. So it means that when she pays for the airfare, when she reaches her destination, she will have 979 EC dollars left. So let's see, providing that she's using all on hotel accommodation and so on, right? Then the amount she'll have left to spend would be the 6,000 minus how much she pays on the air flight for the airfare. Okay, so 979 and $21 will give us 1,000 flat. So it means that she'll have $6,021 left. Not six, sorry, $5,021 left, right? So let's put that here. So that is how much, right, she can use for hotel accommodation. Assuming, of course, right, she used all her savings, right? No, perhaps she may have brought her own food or that's part of the hotel accommodation package, right? So let's work this out. This is EC dollars here now. We need to go back to that exchange rate, you know. $1 is EC 275. So let's see, EC 275 is equal to $1, US, right? US. $1, right? One EC $1, right? We need to convert this to US. And then the answer we get here will be divided by 54 to see how many nights she can stay. So one EC will be US, and it divided, of course, by 275, right? All right, so we can leave it like that because you're really interested in finding out how much is EC 5021. So it will be this figure, 1 over 2.75, which is the US for one EC. And now we're multiplying that by the 5021, right? And let's see if we can get an answer. This is really 5021 divided by 2.75. And this will give us the equivalent amount of US that she can spend on hotel accommodation. So again, let's turn to our calculator for help in this one, right? All right, so we take the 5021, we divide it by 275. So we just converted that amount into EC dollars. Right, so let's round it. It will be 1825.81. All right, let's put 0.82, 1825 and 82 cents. Now, if each night she stays there, she has to pay 54 US. Then to determine the number of nights she can stay, you take in the amount she gets in US, which is this figure, 1825.81, and you dividing that by the cost per night, which is 54 US. Right, 1825. Let's call up the calculator. Right, 1825. Let's put 82. Let's put 82. Well, you know, perhaps that 1 cent can make a difference right there, you know. Right, so let's put 1825, 82 divided by 54. Right, so basically, she will be able to stay 33 nights, right? Now, we cannot round this to 34 because she doesn't have enough money to cover the 34th night that she would be willing to stay there. Right, so the answer would be, we agree it will be 33 nights. And that is not bad, 33, that's over a month vacation, and that's great. Okay, so that'll take us to the end of question number 5. Let's go straight into question number 6. Again, dealing with exchange rates, right? So I'm certain we are professionals in terms of solving these type of problems. And let's see how this one goes. In a bank, US 345 can be exchanged for Bajan $600, right? So how many Bajan can be exchanged for $1 US? Well, this one is asking us to find, let's put it in here, $1 US. This one is asking us to find basically the exchange rate. So let's do that. So Bajan 600 is equivalent to US 345. All right. So $1 Bajan will be equivalent to US 345 over 600. Let's see what that rate is. $345 divided by 600. Okay, 0.575. So it's money we're dealing with. So let's keep the 3 decimal places there, right? That's exchange rate. So when you go into these banks and you look at the board displaying these exchange rates, usually they carry them to about 3, 4, 5 decimal places, right? So we need to keep that 5 at the end there, 0.575, right? Okay, so we have answered the first part here. How many US dollars is equivalent to Bajan 610? Right, so then we can piggyback on this answer in part 1 to figure out the answer in part 2. So if 1 Bajan is equivalent to 0.575 US cents, then Bajan 610 will be equivalent to 0.575 multiplied by 610. So let's see how much that will be, and that's US we're talking about here. US. Right, so you simply multiply this answer by 610. Right, so the person will get $350.75. $350.75. Okay. Right. So that's the end of question number 6. Let's go to question number 7. Oh, there is no question number 7. It's not interesting. So basically we are finished. So again, it's always a pleasure working through these solutions for you. Until we meet again, take care. Bye.